About... You want to be in the video? Yeah, you do. So, about 2 weeks ago, or whatever, from the filming of this video, I put out another video. Well, I recorded the video where I picked up the game The Hobbit for the original Xbox. And I thought that I already had the original, like, Lord of the Rings game for the original Xbox, which is not an EA game because it was made before EA got the license to make Lord of the Rings games. I thought I had it, turns out I didn't. So, while I was on the mainland, one day randomly, I decided that after picking up some books and also getting a hot dog from my local hot dog stand, that I would pop by the reading halls and pick up that Lord of the Rings game. And I did, and some other things. I don't know, I guess, welcome to another pickup video. That was a lot smoother than last time. Okay, so let's just get it out of the way. I picked up 2 Blu-rays. Yeah, you always need a Lord of the Rings Blu-ray for when it's winter, because that's when you'll watch Lord of the Rings. And yeah, I don't know, this looked cool, so I also picked that up. But this is not important, we're not here to talk about movies. We're here to talk about, yes, of course, the original Lord of the Rings game for the original Xbox. This is great, because while it did come out when the first movie came out, or maybe a little after, I believe it's 2002 actually, the movie came out in late 2001, it is not a tie-in to the movie, it is technically based on the book. Because Sierra Online Entertainment had gotten the rights to Lord of the Rings back in the late 80s or early 90s, and had actually been putting out a few Hobbit games and a few Lord of the Rings games for various consoles and computers. And their rights were set to expire at some point. I believe they had they were set to expire in 2002 because they got, I assume, a 10-year contract. So the problem for, of course, the people that were making the Lord of the Rings movies were that they wanted to make Lord of the Rings games, but they couldn't based on the first game because the rights wouldn't expire yet. And so yeah, Sierra, they made this, and it is really good. The games that EA made are fantastic. They're great hack and slash games, but this is a really neat pseudo RPG, pseudo stealth game, pseudo brawler, pseudo puzzle action game. There are sections where you play as Frodo and where you do like Hobbit things. You can even put on the One Ring to become invisible and sneak past enemies, but you can only use it so many times during a playthrough before you will get an instant game over if you use it again. And you also get to use his like little blue sword at some point, and it will actually glow up when there are orcs nearby. It is super cool. And playing as Aragorn, or rather Strider as he's known in the beginning, is also fantastic. And you also get to play as Gandalf, and yeah, he's a wizard and does wizard things. He doesn't really come into the game until you are in Mordor. No, I mean, until you are in Moria. Yeah, and his sections are quite a bit harder because he is later in the game. It's a fantastic game. I really recommend it because it's just neat. It's one of those games where it has like it has a ton of different little tiny mechanics that are only used like 2-3 times and then they're never used again. And I like that. I think it's cool. And then we have Munchs Odyssey, which is an Oddworld game. And also the reason why I kept spelling Odyssey wrong for so fucking long, because I thought it would be spelled like this, but no, this is not how you spell Odyssey. This was one of those games that I saw in those little booklets that came with Xbox games. Actually, let me see if it has one. It does. Yeah, so every Xbox game back in the day, it used to come with this. And this was basically advertisements for games that were first party or second party or just real fucking cool. And as you can see, Munchs Odyssey, it was on one of them. The contents of these things would change throughout the years, but yeah, if you were an original Xbox kid in the early days of the Xbox, you definitely remember seeing this game in one of those booklets. So I looked at it, it always looked fucking weird, but in a really endearing and interesting way, right? But I never got it. I don't know quite why. I think I was more... I think I wanted that first-person Stranger's Wrath game, which was also an Oddworld game that came out around the same time. I always wanted that more, and I never actually really got it. But I think this is actually better and more unique and more fun because you play a little handicapped alien man in a wheelchair that's getting pushed along by another alien. I think there are gonna be some neat puzzles in this, and I'm looking very much forward to playing it. It is also one of those games that I don't have any experience with at all, and I have never looked at any gameplay for because I don't want to spoil these things for myself. I want to go in fairly blind if I'm confident that I will enjoy it, and I know just by looking at those screenshots that I will definitely enjoy it. We got Dark Angel the game. So there might be a bit of a theme with this pickup. This is gonna be a lot of weird tie-ins and weird tie-ins that are sort of like stealthy about infiltration and all that stuff. Basically, I was inspired a little bit by my Splinter Cell pickup in the last video to, pick up some of these games. I really love the Dark Angel TV show. I was really mad that it didn't get a third season. It could really have used one. Yeah, I'm guessing that the game based on it is pretty bad. If you don't know, I believe this takes place in the far-flung future of 2019. World War III has happened, I believe, and America has become a third world country because there was a giant-ass EMP that blew out all the technology in the US. So it is no longer the world's superpower. Yeah, democracy has not been doing great, which at the point when this TV show was made, Americans and also Europeans and everyone else also thought that America was a fine democracy, even though we know now that it wasn't, because it has only gotten worse from then. Yeah, this was a game about coming to the realization that America is a broken ass fucking democracy, and it has had some really cool social commentary about how it was always a broken democracy. Basically real life. Yeah, this is a pathetic game, because this is about America in what is basically now becoming a bit of a third world country. Because billionaires are evil. Huh, yeah, so it stars Jessica Alba. It's an action show, which is really fun. She's a genetically manipulated whatever creature. And she sort of becomes a little bit of a superhero who helps out people. It's a great show, and it's probably going to be a terrible game, but I'm going to play it nonetheless because, I don't know, I kind of love these, and also I have the Buffy the Vampire Slayer game, and I've talked about that extensively. I've actually picked up both the Buffy the Vampire Slayer games. I have yet to play Chaos Bleeds, which is the second one. I'm going to get around to it, but I just haven't yet. But yeah, that game, the first one is super great. I don't think that is indicative of how licensed games usually are, because usually they are piss, and I'm guessing that this will also be piss. But I don't know, maybe I'll like it, maybe they'll do something interesting. This is from a time when licensed games were trying, usually failing, but always trying. So I'm gonna give it the benefit of the doubt, and I'm gonna go give it a try at some point. Speaking of the theme, we got Alias, which is a spy show starring a younger and way hotter Jennifer Garner. Look at this. That is a hot ass babe. Yeah, so this is similar to Dark Angel. This is a spy show, but it's like a proper spy show that's set in like the 2000s, I believe. And yeah, you play as Agent Sydney Bristow, who, as much time as she spends like doing James Bond shit, she spends as much time trying to like uncover the brokenness and corruption within her own organization. I don't think the video game is gonna have any of that. I think it's gonna have terrible action, terrible stealth, and a bunch of like real dumb mechanics, and I'm looking very much forward to playing it. Oh, and I just keep going. This is the Great Escape video game, based on the movie The Great Escape. I believe I've talked about The Thing before. There was this period around the 2000s where video game companies decided to make a bunch of video game tie-ins to movies that weren't really especially new. I believe this one is from the 50s because it originally starred Steve McQueen, and he's been dead since the 60s, I believe. So this would have obviously had to have been filmed before he died. The Thing game, which was based on The Thing, the movie from 1982, was absolutely fantastic. I really loved it. So I thought The Great Escape could be a neat game to also play, because it is about a bunch of like American prisoners of war during World War II planning and plotting and executing an escape from some kind of like prison camp. They were being held by the Nazis. So yeah, I think that could be cool. This will definitely have some stealth elements, probably also some action, probably some bad action, and I'm looking forward to playing it. Yeah, it looks decent enough actually. And I don't know if this is also a tie-in. It might be, but it just looked similar to The Great Escape. So I decided that I wanted it. Let me see if it is a tie-in. I have no idea. So this is Prisoner of War. This is apparently based on real-life events of a prison break. So I imagine that this is actually the inspiration for this. So that's probably why I bought it. Same concept, same idea. I wouldn't be surprised if the developers of this saw The Great Escape and was the Great Escape and was like, we can make a game about this thing that took our story and turned it into a Steve McQueen movie. And then they also turned it into a game, because it looks quite similar. It looks like there's a bit of action, a bit of stealth, a bit of simulation, and a lot of Nazis. So yeah, could be cool. It actually says a new kind of escape adventure on the cover. So maybe they were trying to like start their own whole new genre. That would have been cool if we had gotten something like that. And then we have Gallion. This was a massively hyped title, and it was supposed to release around the time that the Xbox itself released. It was gonna be not a launch title, but a launch window title, which is the fancy speak that publishers just use when they can't get their shit together and plan their games properly and get them out in time for the console's release. Yeah, I believe it was made by the guy that was like the lead developer on the first Tomb Raider, maybe? And he broke away from Crystal Dynamics, I believe, and then went to work on this. Yeah, and it fucking bombed. It's a cool, like, pirate, action, adventure, mystery, whatever thingy. I'm still curious to see what it has to offer. I love the game The Legend of the Black Cat, which was also a game that reviewed terribly, and also about pirates. And I of course like the Pirates of the Caribbean movies, which is half the reasons why games like these exist. I have no idea what it's actually about, I just know that it's a cool pirate adventure. Another theme about except for like the stealth thing and the licensed games and generally like looking at some more terrible games in this pickups, is that I also like went in trying to look for some games that I never had played but also kind of wanted to play. Because if you haven't noticed before, in these videos I sometimes just pull out 10 games and recite their plots and their gameplay with encyclopedic precision. And it's because I always collect things that I've played before a lot, usually. Or the sequels, or tie-ins, or games that are like things that I've played before, so I know a lot about. And I don't know really anything about any of these. And then we have Stolen, which, ironically, I think has stolen artwork on the cover. Well, it's not stolen, I think I think it's pirated copied artwork. Well, there's printed artwork, I think, but not the original printed artwork. This is another stealth game, and another terribly reviewed game that didn't do particularly well critically and or commercially. I don't know anything about it. I'm actually sorry that I don't know a whole lot about any of these things. Like, I don't even know the developer. Like, who the fuck is Hip Games? What? But to make up for the fact that I don't know anything about any of these things that I brought, I have a little surprise for you. Because while I was picking up these games, I asked the owner of the store, who I talk to on occasion about like video games shit. I asked him if he randomly mentioned during a conversation that he had some games that he was sad that he didn't have the boxes for because they were apparently worth a lot of money. And I was like, I don't care about the boxes. I will buy you a fucking like games without boxes. And he was like, okay, cool. Do you have time now to look at them? And I didn't. So I came back the week after, which is this week. It was yesterday, actually, from when I'm recording this video. And I went and I looked through whatever he had of, it was mostly Xbox 360 and Xbox One. And I picked out some stuff and I got it for like a really good deal. Yeah, I should probably like mention the prices on these. Most of these were either 50 Danish kroner or 100 Danish kroner. And that is a little bit steep, but the games are all in excellent condition and they all have all of the manuals and extra stuff, as you can see from the Munchs Odyssey thing. So it's a really good price if you want like clean games. You're not gonna get clean games for anything less, not gonna get complete games in it for anything less. And Denmark is of course also a much more expensive country than everywhere else because, you know, we make dollar bills, y'all. So yeah, I have some games that came without boxes and these were fucking steals. I got these for like really fucking cheap. I got Metal Gear Survive for the Xbox One. I originally actually played this. I got some kind of like review copy of the game where I could play, I believe, like a chunk of the game, and I actually thought it was really great. I thought the most annoying thing about it was that I couldn't, financially like support it or like give Konami money because they had like backhandedly like fired Hideo Kojima, who had made the Metal Gear Solid series. And he was fired, of course, during the development, actually, of Metal Gear 5. He had just, like, they basically barely completed it. And he was fired. So I couldn't buy Metal Gear Survive, which is a zombie survival base building spin-off of Metal Gear 5. It takes place in a parallel dimension, and you play as a random guy who was part of, like, Solid Snake's army in Metal Gear 5. And then a portal to hell opens up and you have to do zombie survival things. And is there like a bit of base building? It's one of those like survival modes. Yeah, so that's the whole game. I really liked it, but I didn't like actually buy it because like fuck Konami or whatever. And then I got The Evil Within 2. I've played the first one, didn't particularly like it. The weird thing about this series is that either people really like the first one, or people really like the second one. I've met very few people that like both of them. And if they do, they understand why people don't like both of them, because they are very different games apparently. I didn't like the first one, which was a weird survival horror game that was it was like playing an even clunkier version of Resident Evil 4, and apparently it had like a mindfuck weird ass story, which I never got to. Because there's a weird twist where it's the plot to The Matrix or whatever, something like that. Yeah, so I didn't like that one. I got 1-2 hours into it. And I've always been told that you should play the second one then if you didn't like the first one, because as I said before, if you do like one of them, you're not gonna like the other, so I'm hoping that because I didn't like the other one, that I will like this one. So yeah, I'm gonna try that. Oh, and speaking of games that got Hideo Kojima fired, it is indeed Metal Gear Solid 5, the Phantom Pain. Yeah, also, I didn't want to buy it because Konami underhandedly, like, backhandedly fired Hideo Kojima while he was working at Konami, so it's just like, I don't fuck companies, right? Fuck big ass corporations. They should treat their employees better. It can't be that fucking hard. And if they did, we would have better video games. So I didn't want to buy Metal Gear Solid 5, but I will buy a boxless version of it for very, very cheap. Oh yeah, and we have body count on the Xbox 360. This is a budget shooter. And the only reason that I bought it is because it was very cheap. It was a very low print run shooter from around like the mid 2010s, I believe. So the price usually for this game is actually quite a bit high compared to the fact that it is a no-name game that no one actually likes, that people only play because they're like, oh, I've never heard about body count before. It was apparently developed or at least published by Codemasters, and they make exclusively things that aren't particularly good but always a little bit interesting. So I picked it up. And then we have Marin and the Forsaken Kingdom. This is a very cute Japanesey platformer adventure game where you and a big ass giant have to like make your way through the titular Forsaken Kingdom. It is super cute, and I've always wanted the game. I've always wanted to play it, but the physical price of the game is way too fucking high, and the digital price is fucking bullshit. It is also too high. It never goes on sale on the Xbox 360 store, and it's been perpetually stuck at like 50 euros for whatever, and I don't want to pay that much for it, because I'm not sure I'm gonna like Marin and the Forsaken Kingdom. It's a game that I think looks really, really interesting, but it's not a game that I feel like I want to pay 50 euros for if it turns out to be bullshit. But I'm happy to pay a tenth of that price for a boxless version. And yeah, speaking of, we have more Japanese bullshit. This is a JRPG on the Xbox 360 called Eternal Sonata. The thing about JRPGs on the Xbox 360 is that there were not a whole lot of them released, but all of them are more interesting than the best JRPGs released on the PS3 or the Nintendo Wii or whatever. And I think it's because all of the JRPGs that actually came to the Xbox 360, they were contracted by Microsoft to some extent, so they all had a bit more budget than budget JRPGs usually do. And also because like there were no rules, and because these games often didn't actually come out in Japan for Japanese audiences, these Japanese developers, they seem to be a bit more loose and a bit more creative and take a bit more risk and breaks. Because like Japanese developers make most of their money selling to Japanese consumers, so it's very, very important that they get it right. Because Japanese consumers are fucking rabid. Like they will consume everything a company puts out if they like the thing, but once they don't like the company, they will not consume any of their products, which is incidentally why a lot of Japanese companies can stop making the same thing over and over and over again. And while they have these like long periods of time in Japanese game design where they are just like stuck doing the same thing, and where Japanese games just fucking suck, like the mid-2000s basically. Yeah, I didn't want to pay 50 euros for this, just like with Marin and the Forsaken Kingdom, but I will pay a tenth of it. Yeah, I love checking these things out. I never play JRPGs, and when I finally fucking do, it's always like the really interesting ones, and they suck me in. I've played Blue Dragon a bunch, which is also a Xbox 360 JRPG made by Akira Toriyama, I believe. Yeah, it's also like really neat, has a cool cheapy art style. Great game, love it. And I'll probably love Eternal Sonata. Maybe, unless it sucks. Yeah, and I have the prequel to Metal Gear Solid 5. Metal Gear Solid 5 Ground Zeroes. You might be mistaken for expecting Metal Gear Solid 4 to be the prequel to Metal Gear Solid 5, but it is not, because Metal Gear Solid 5 takes place in the 80s, and Metal Gear Solid 4 takes place in the 2010s. The thing about Metal Gear Solid is that the third game and the fifth game and a bunch of side games, they are about Solid Snake's dad, who is the protagonist, of course, of Metal Gear Solid. And this is the final game, because this is where the series comes full circle. because this takes place just before the original Metal Gear game, which came out on the MSX, which is a Microsoft computer that mostly came out in Japan, but also a little bit in Europe. The game also had a port on the Nintendo Entertainment System, which is how a lot of people know about the original Metal Gear, but that port is bullshit. Don't play it. Play the MXX version. It is included on, I believe, the HD collection of Metal Gear, which has Metal Gear 2 and 3. And is also included on the PS3 like anthology collection, which has all of the Metal Gears up until 4. Yeah, you can play the original Metal Gear for MSX like that. And this is the prequel for 5, because 5 took a really long time to develop. And it bridges the gap between the game that is set earlier in the timeline, which is Metal Gear Solid Peace Walker. It bridges the gap between Peace Walker and the proper 5. Because this is like where there's like you're infiltrating this prison facility thing. It's very cool, has some like neat environmental effects because it takes place in rain a lot of time, and Konami were really proud of their rain-making capabilities. And the pièce de résistance, it is Magna Carta II. This is another Xbox 360 JRPG that Microsoft had some kind of hand in getting developed. It is also idiotically expensive. I have never seen this get sold on eBay for less than, I want to say, 70 euro. And usually like the auctions go up to about 100. In box, that is. So yeah, I ended up paying, well, basically a tenth of that. Unlike a few of the other JRPGs on the Xbox 360s that I've mentioned, this was a very early one. And it's also a more traditional JRPG with a more like traditional JRPG vibe to it. But it is also still very weird because it's called Magna Carta II, which has something to do with like medieval British politics, and I think that might have like a thing. And I don't know what relation it has to Magna Carta 1 or what Magna Carta 1 even is. Or maybe Magna Carta 2, the game, is actually the sequel to the contract from British medieval politics. That would be fucking hilarious if that was the case. It was like, oh, you've read the original Magna Carta, where this guy named John, he abdicated as King of England and went into exile. So now you can play the sequel where he comes back, which he did in real life, with an army of Germans, and then he like took back the throne of England. So yeah, that's cool. And those were all the pickups that I picked up over the course of 2 weeks. I put them all into this one journey, this one tale, because they were related. And I also didn't want to do a whole video of just like showing you a bunch of games that don't have boxes. But they will have boxes soon, because I'll make my own boxes and I'll make neat, cool designs. I won't just print the regular box out. Fuck that shit. I want to make it fun. I'm gonna do my own spin on it. Just so I can put them on a shelf and I can recognize them. Alfred is, yeah, he's dead. I don't know. He has a thing. A lot of hunting dogs has the thing where if you talk, they will start sleeping. Because they understand that when humans are talking, it is not time for dogs to be running. So if you start having a conversation with someone, even when you are like out in the wilderness, he'll just come over and he'll just lay down, and he'll lay down until the conversation is over. And sometimes he'll fall asleep right outside in the nature. And I think that's what's happening now. I think he understands what computers are, kind of. So I think he thinks that I'm having some kind of like computer Zoom call right now. Because he has done this before. And as you can see, he's very cinematic. He's very aware of where the camera is. You can see that he knows what a fucking screen is because he put himself perfectly in frame. Right. He could have tilted his head the other way so that his head wouldn't be visible. But he wants to maintain that eye contact. Sometimes when I'm on the phone, he'll like crawl up on my other shoulder, and then he'll like snuggle in on my neck so that he can listen to my phone call. He is annoyingly clever about a lot of these things. And Let me know if you've collected any cool games on your own and how you're doing, and if you're playing something cool and if you have any recommendations for things that I should try and collect, because I'm at the point now where I have pretty much all of the stuff that I wanted from when I was a wee little boy, except like the really expensive stuff, like the Steel Battalion thing. So now I'm expanding and I'm looking for more interesting things, and I'm also going to be selling some of my stuff that I don't play and have no intention to play, like most of my PlayStation shit. I got like 5,000 euros worth of PlayStation shit, and I will never play it because I don't really play PlayStation. I'm of course gonna keep like the things that I like, but I'm not gonna keep like all of the expensive JRPGs. Fuck those, don't care. I've played some of them, I'm not a fan. I'm much more of a fan of the fun but few Xbox 360 JRPGs, and I'm gonna play those. So, yeah, until I see you again, bye-bye.
Without his side by side,